never thought my life would unravel like this. Just 6 months ago, I was living what I believed to be a typical suburban dream. The sun would shine through the kitchen window as I sipped my morning coffee, watching my wife, Lisa, bustle about preparing breakfast. Lisa was everything to me, funny, charming, and more beautiful than she probably realized. We had our ups and downs, sure, but who does? I always believed that love and commitment were enough to weather any storm. But then, there were the signs. I remember the first time I noticed something was off. It was subtle, a slight change in her tone when she answered her phone or that lingering moment of silence whenever I would walk into the room while she was texting. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was just busy with work, or perhaps she was planning a surprise for my upcoming birthday. Little did I know that surprise was anything but innocent. Then things escalated. A few weeks later, I found her phone buzzing late at night. I thought she was sleeping, but when I reached over to silence it, I saw a name I didn't recognize. Tommy. My heart raced. Who the hell was Tommy? There was a gnawing feeling in my gut that told me I needed to know more, so I did what anyone in my position might do. I waited. I listened. I paid attention. What I found was a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to betrayal. It started with late nights when she worked late at the office but always came home with a certain glow about her, one that wasn't just from the fluorescent lights of her workplace. Then there were the random texts that she'd quickly hide as soon as I walked into the room. I saw my once loving wife transforming into a secretive stranger right before my eyes. One day, I decided to dig deeper. I found a receipt in her purse from a hotel that we had never visited, a hotel that was just a short drive away. My stomach dropped. I confronted her about it, but she had a quick excuse ready. "Oh, that's just for a work conference," she said, shrugging it off. Yet it felt like a lie, a flimsy cover for something much darker. The real kicker came when I came home early one afternoon, hopping to surprise her with lunch. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car that looked suspiciously familiar. It was my stepfather's old sedan, the one I hadn't seen in years. My heart raced. I parked and quietly walked to our front door. What I found when I stepped inside was a scene out of a nightmare. There they were, necking on the couch like teenagers, completely unaware that I had just walked in. My breath caught in my throat as I felt the cold grip of reality settle over me. Lisa, my wife, was tangled up with my stepfather, the man who had been a father figure to me for most of my life. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I stood frozen, trying to process the betrayal, the anger boiling up inside me. They finally noticed me, and the look of shock on Lisa's face was something I will never forget. It was as if I had walked in on a crime in progress. "What the hell is going on?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence of our home. Lisa jumped up, trying to cover herself with a blanket, her face flushed with panic. My stepfather, on the other hand, had the audacity to look unbothered, as if this was just another day in his sordid life. "You don't understand," Lisa stammered, panic and guilt flooding her features. "It's not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. I didn't need a lawyer to decode that. As I stood there, a mix of rage and heartbreak coursing through me, I had a choice to make. I could scream, yell, and demand answers. Or I could walk away and cut my losses. The weight of the betrayal was suffocating. I felt betrayed not just by her but by the very foundation of my family. This was my stepfather, the man I had trusted, and Lisa, the woman I had devoted my life to. I was standing at a crossroads, and in that moment, I decided that this was not a relationship worth salvaging. The confrontation that followed was a cacophony of emotions: Lisa's frantic pleas for understanding, my stepfather's pathetic attempts at justification. I was done hearing their excuses. I had to think of my own sanity and well-being. What I did realize then was that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey toward reclaiming my life. The moment I walked out of that house, my entire world shifted. I felt like I was in a surreal dream, processing the events that had just unfolded. My heart was pounding, and my mind was racing as I tried to tamp down the whirlwind of emotions inside me. I couldn't believe that Lisa had betrayed me with my stepfather. It was like being punched in the gut, and the pain echoed throughout my entire being. I drove aimlessly for hours, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I fought back tears. I didn't know where to go, but I needed to escape the reality of that moment. The betrayal felt like a knife in my back, twisting deeper, with every thought of what I had just witnessed. Images of Lisa and my stepfather together flashed through my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling of absolute disgust. As the sun began to set, I finally found myself parked at a nearby lake, a place where I used to come to clear my head. I sat in the car, staring out at the water as the fading light reflected off its surface. The stillness around me felt foreign, as if the world was moving on while I was stuck in this emotional limbo. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself, but all I could think about was Lisa's face, the panic, the guilt, the betrayal. After some time, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, tempted to call someone, maybe my best friend, Mark. He had always been there for me, offering support and a listening ear. But part of me hesitated. I didn't want to burden him with this mess, to drag him into the chaos that had just consumed my life. It felt too raw, too personal. Eventually, I decided to call. I needed someone to help me sort through the turmoil in my head. When he answered, I could hear the warmth in his voice. "Hey man, what's up? You okay?" I took a deep breath and spilled everything about Lisa, what I had seen, and how crushed I was feeling. Mark listened patiently, and I could hear the disbelief in his voice as I recounted the events. "Dude, that's messed up. I can't believe she would do that to you, especially with your stepdad. What are you going to do?" That was the million-dollar question. I had so many thoughts swirling in my head. Should I confront them again? Should I try to work things out? Maybe I could fix it, but deep down I knew the truth. That trust was shattered beyond repair. Mark suggested I take some time away from the house, giving myself space to think. "You need to clear your head, man," he said. "You deserve better than this." Those words rang true, echoing through my mind as I hung up. I knew I needed to act fast before I fell into a pit of despair. I spent the night in a cheap motel, tossing and turning as I replayed everything over and over in my head. The next morning, I awoke feeling like a ghost in my own life. I had been living a lie, and now that illusion had shattered into a million pieces. I needed a plan, a way to reclaim my life before it spiraled further out of control. I picked up my phone again, this time calling a lawyer. After that call, I felt some sense of relief, even if it was just a tiny sliver. I knew I had to protect myself legally, especially considering the shared assets we had. I felt a cold determination wash over me. I was going to take charge of my life and make decisions for myself, no matter how painful they might be. A part of me trembled at the thought of seeing Lisa again. Would she beg for forgiveness? Would she try to manipulate me into believing we could fix this? I wanted to believe that I could just cut her out of my life, but the thought of confronting her was daunting. But I couldn't avoid it forever. Days passed as I began to prepare myself emotionally for the confrontation. I sought advice from friends and even read up on relationship dynamics. I refused to be the victim in this story. I needed to find my strength and stand up for myself. Then the day came. I walked back into our house, the same house that had felt like a sanctuary just days before. Now it felt like a battleground. Lisa was there, a look of uncertainty on her face as she saw me. I could see the guilt written all over her, but I was done with the emotional games. "Lisa," I started, my voice trembling but firm, "we need to talk." The words hung heavy in the air and I could see her flinch. She opened her mouth, likely to protest or beg, but I raised my hand to silence her. "No more lies, no more excuses. I know what you did with my stepfather and I'm done." What followed was a whirlwind of emotions as she tried to explain herself, weaving a tangled web of excuses. But I wasn't interested. I had made my decision and there was no turning back. I stood my ground, feeling the weight of my resolve growing stronger with each passing moment. As I looked into her eyes, I realized that I had to take control of my life. I could no longer allow myself to be caught in her manipulative grasp. I was ready to cut ties, reclaim my freedom, and move forward. This was not just about revenge. It was about my own healing and reclaiming the pieces of myself that I had lost. This moment marked a turning point. I would not be a victim. I would be the architect of my own future. The confrontation with Lisa left me feeling both drained and relieved. I had finally stood up for myself, but the emotional weight of it still hung heavily in the air. I knew this was just the beginning of a long and painful process, but I felt a sense of clarity creeping in. I had made my choice. I would no longer play the role of the blind husband, hopping for things to get better. Once I left that house, I knew I had to focus on how to execute my plan. First on my agenda was to get my financial situation sorted out. I reached out to the lawyer I had called earlier, and we scheduled a meeting to discuss the intricacies of divorce. I felt a mix of apprehension and empowerment as I prepared the paperwork, starting to separate my life from hers legally. As I sat across from my lawyer, a sturdy older woman named Karen, she listened intently as I recounted my story. "You have every right to feel angry and betrayed," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "But it's important to approach this methodically. You'll need to gather evidence to support your case, especially since you have shared assets." The thought of collecting evidence felt surreal, but I understood the necessity. My emotional turmoil had to be backed by cold, hard facts if I was going to get through this. I began to compile everything: text messages, receipts, and even screenshots from social media posts that hinted at their affair. Each piece of evidence felt like another nail in the coffin of my past life. As I worked through the details of my case, Lisa tried to reach out to me multiple times. I ignored her calls and messages, opting instead to focus on my own healing and setting myself up for success in this new life. Each time my phone buzzed with her name, I felt a pang of annoyance, mixed with the fear of what she might say. I had to remind myself that this was my path forward, and I needed to stay firm in my resolve. A few weeks later, I was in the thick of divorce proceedings. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. One minute I was filled with determination, and the next I found myself overwhelmed with sadness. I missed the life we had built together, and though I knew I was making the right choice, the pain of losing Lisa still clawed at my heart. Then the unexpected happened. One afternoon I received a call from my stepfather. My first instinct was to ignore it, but something compelled me to answer. "John," he said, his voice dripping with false sincerity, "I think we need to talk." The nerve of this man was astounding. How could he even think he had the right to reach out after what he had done? But I agreed to meet him. Part of me wanted to confront him directly to see if he had any shred of remorse for his actions. We met at a small cafe, and as I sat across from him, I felt the tension hanging thick in the air. He looked older than I remembered, but the arrogance was still evident. "I know this situation has been tough for everyone involved," he started, but I interrupted him. "Spare me the pleasantries. You took advantage of my trust and my marriage. How could you do this?" He sighed, leaning back in his chair. It was a mistake. The way he dismissed it felt like a slap in the face. "Your marriage was on the rocks, John. Lisa was vulnerable, and vulnerable," I shot back. "You were supposed to be a father figure to me, and you crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. This isn't about Lisa's vulnerability, it's about your lack of morality." The conversation spiraled from there, with him trying to justify his actions while I steadfastly refused to give him any leeway. I felt a surge of anger coursing through me as I realized that he was more concerned about his own reputation than the damage he had done to my life. Eventually, I stood up, feeling my pulse quicken as I faced him. "I'm cutting ties with you, not just with Lisa. You don't get to be a part of my life any longer. I won't let your toxicity seep into my future." I left the cafe feeling lighter, even though the weight of the entire situation was still heavy on my heart. I had made a decision for my own well-being, and cutting ties with my stepfather was just as crucial as severing my relationship with Lisa. As the days turned into weeks, I began to immerse myself in activities that brought me joy. I reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I had long neglected, and even started going to the gym. The physical activity helped channel my anger and frustration, turning it into something productive. The emotional healing took time. Each time I came across a memory of Lisa, I had to remind myself that I was reclaiming my life, that I was no longer a victim but a survivor. It was a hard truth to accept, but with each passing day, I felt stronger, more resolute in my decision to leave that part of my life behind. I also started attending therapy, where I could unpack my feelings in a safe space. My therapist helped me navigate the complex emotions surrounding my betrayal, teaching me how to cope and find closure. The process was grueling but necessary, and I found solace in knowing that I was taking active steps toward healing. Eventually, the divorce was finalized and I felt a rush of relief wash over me. I had done it. I had taken control of my life and, though it was still painful, I was forging a path forward. I had learned to prioritize my own happiness, to value myself, and to let go of the toxic relationships that had held me captive for too long. Reflecting on my journey thus far, I realized that I was no longer the man who had walked into that cafe, nor was I the husband who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was becoming someone new, someone who had weathered the storm and emerged stronger on the other side. It was time to embrace the future, one that was all mine. As I moved forward, I found myself settling into a new routine. The chaos of the past was slowly fading, replaced by a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I was starting to rediscover who I was outside of my marriage. I began to explore interests I had set aside, like hiking and photography. There was this beautiful trail a few miles from my apartment that led to a stunning overlook, and I made it a point to hike there at least once a week. On one of those hikes, I found solace in the quiet of nature, the whispering trees and the rustling leaves. Each step felt cathartic, allowing me to leave behind the burden of my past. I took my camera along, capturing the beauty around me, the sunsets, the wildlife, the little moments that brought me joy. There was something therapeutic about framing a shot, something that made me feel alive again. Around this time, I also reconnected with an old college friend, Jake. We had lost touch over the years, but I reached out, and it turned out he was going through his own life changes after a messy breakup. We met for drinks one evening, and it felt good to vent about our mutual struggles. Jake was open and honest, sharing his own story of heartache, and in that shared vulnerability, a bond formed. We began hanging out more often, going to concerts and trying out new restaurants. It felt refreshing to share laughs and experiences with someone who understood the pain of loss, but was also ready to embrace new beginnings. As our friendship deepened, I found myself opening up about my journey, my healing process, and the lessons I had learned through the turmoil. One night, as we sat on the rooftop of a bar overlooking the city, I couldn't help but feel grateful. I was surrounded by friends, laughter, and a sense of belonging I had not realized I was missing. As the night wore on, I felt a warmth in my heart, a glimmer of hope for what could be. I hadn't thought about love or relationships in a long time. I was focused on healing. But as I looked out at the twinkling city lights, I began to wonder if I was ready to open myself up to new possibilities. That curiosity led me to sign up for a local photography class. It was something I had always wanted to do but never took the plunge for various reasons. I thought maybe it would help me develop my skills and meet new people. The class turned out to be a life changer. I met a diverse group of individuals, all eager to explore their own creativity. On the first day, I met Sarah, a witty and vivacious woman with a passion for capturing candid moments. She had a contagious energy that instantly drew me in. We struck up a conversation during a break, and I found myself laughing and enjoying her company more than I had anticipated. As the classes progressed, we worked on projects together, sharing tips and techniques while also learning about each other's lives. One weekend, we organized a photo walk in the city, and I felt a spark of excitement I hadn't felt in a long time. As we strolled through the streets, snapping pictures of urban life, I found myself captivated not just by the art we were creating, but by the connection we were forming. We shared stories about our pasts, and I felt comfortable enough to tell her about my recent heartbreak and the journey I had been on. Her empathy and understanding were refreshing. She didn't judge my past, and instead, she encouraged me to focus on the future, to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. I felt a kinship with her, and it was liberating to talk to someone who understood the complexities of love and loss. Days turned into weeks, and our friendship blossomed. We would often grab coffee after class or go on mini adventures to capture the beauty of the world around us. I could feel my heart opening up again, inch by inch. The laughter that filled our conversations began to heal the scars that Lisa and my stepfather had left behind. One evening, as we stood on the balcony of a gallery showcasing our photography, I looked out at the city skyline, the vibrant colors of the sunset painting the buildings in warm hues. I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It was as if the universe was telling me that everything would be okay, that I was on the right path to rediscovering joy and connection. That night, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Sarah and I shared a moment that felt electric. Our eyes met, and I could see a flicker of something deeper reflecting back at me. We moved closer, and in that instant I knew that I was ready to take a leap of faith. I leaned in and kissed her, a soft yet tentative gesture, but one that held the promise of new beginnings. As we pulled away, I could see the surprise in her eyes, but there was also a spark of excitement. "Wow, I didn't expect that," she said with a playful grin, "but I'm definitely not complaining." The kiss opened a new chapter in my life, one that was filled with hope and the possibility of love. I hadn't thought I would be ready so soon, but being with Sarah felt different. She was not a replacement for Lisa. She was a fresh start, a reminder that life could be beautiful and fulfilling again. As I walked away from that gallery, hand in hand with Sarah, I felt lighter. The haunting memories of betrayal still lingered, but they no longer had the power to define me. I was moving forward, and I was excited about what the future held. I had learned that healing takes time, and while the scars of my past would always be a part of me, they wouldn't dictate my worth or my happiness. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. I was ready to embrace the unknown, to explore new horizons, and to continue my journey of self-discovery with someone who appreciated and respected the person I was becoming. My past may have been filled with heartbreak, but the future was ripe with possibilities, and I was ready to seize them. As I ventured deeper into this new relationship with Sarah, I found myself rediscovering the simple pleasures of life. We spent countless hours exploring the city, engaging in late-night conversations that stretched into the early morning. With each passing day, my connection with her grew stronger, and I realized how much I had been missing in my life: laughter, companionship, and the thrill of shared experiences. Sarah had this incredible ability to make even the mundane feel special. Whether we were wandering through local markets or lounging in parks, she had a knack for finding joy in every moment. I remember one particular Sunday afternoon, we decided to visit a nearby botanical garden. The sun was shining and the flowers were in full bloom. As we strolled through the vibrant displays, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. We talked about everything and nothing, our hopes, dreams, and the little things that brought us joy. I watched as she leaned down to take pictures of a particularly beautiful flower, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. In that moment, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had finally found someone who could embrace the beauty of life with me. However, as our relationship deepened, I found myself grappling with remnants of my past. Occasionally, I would catch myself hesitating to fully let go of my previous heartbreak. I worried about opening my heart completely, fearing the possibility of getting hurt again. But Sarah was patient, and her understanding demeanor made it easier for me to articulate my fears. One night, as we shared a bottle of wine on my balcony, I opened up about my struggles. "I want this to work, Sarah," I confessed, staring out at the city skyline. "But I can't help but feel a lingering fear of being hurt again. It's hard for me to trust." She listened intently, and as I spoke, I could see her weighing her words carefully. "John, it's natural to feel hesitant after everything you've been through," she said softly. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you. I'm not Lisa, I'm not your past. I want to build something real with you." Her words struck a chord, and I felt a flood of emotions. I realized that I needed to embrace the present and allow myself to be vulnerable again. I had spent so long guarding my heart that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to truly connect with someone. Sarah was different. There was a warmth about her, a genuine kindness that drew me in, and I didn't want fear to stand in the way of something beautiful. That night, as we curled up together under a blanket, I made a promise to myself. I would let go of the past, embracing the love that was right in front of me. The journey to healing had been long and painful, but I was ready to take the leap of faith. As the weeks flew by, I felt myself diving headfirst into this new chapter. Sarah and I began to share experiences that solidified our bond. We traveled to a nearby beach for a weekend getaway, spending our days lounging in the sun and our nights gazing at the stars. I felt alive, truly alive, as I shared laughter and intimate moments with her. One evening, while walking along the shoreline, we stumbled upon a secluded spot away from the crowds. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow on the waves. I paused to take in the breathtaking view, and in that moment I felt a rush of emotions. It was the perfect backdrop for a moment I wanted to capture forever. "Sarah," I said, turning to her, "you've brought so much joy into my life. I never imagined I could feel this way again after everything that happened with Lisa." She smiled back at me, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. "I'm glad you feel that way. You deserve to be happy, John. Life can be beautiful again, and I want to be a part of that journey with you." As the waves lapped at our feet, I took her hand, feeling a surge of courage. "I'm ready to let go of my fears," I said. "I want to commit to us to this new chapter." Her expression softened and she squeezed my hand. "Me too," she replied, her voice filled with sincerity. That moment solidified our commitment to one another. It was a vow to embrace love and vulnerability, to cherish the present, and to create a future together. The weight of my past began to lift, replaced by the excitement of new beginnings. But life has a way of testing our resolve, and soon enough, I would face a challenge I hadn't anticipated: the emotional fallout of my past catching up with me. A few days after our beach trip, I received a call from an unknown number. It turned out to be Lisa. I felt my stomach drop as I answered. "John, can we talk? I know you're angry, but I need to explain myself," she said, her voice shaky. I was taken aback. Part of me wanted to hang up the phone and forget she ever existed, but another part of me felt compelled to hear her out. What could she possibly say that would change anything? With a deep breath, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. I walked in, my heart racing with a mix of anticipation and dread. Lisa was already seated, fiddling with her hands as I approached. The tension in the air was palpable. As we sat down, I was struck by how different she looked, more vulnerable and weary than I remembered. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I messed up and I'm sorry. I was caught up in my own issues, but that's no excuse for what I did to you." I listened as she stumbled through her explanation, offering a half-hearted apology mixed with excuses about feeling lost and unfulfilled. But as she spoke, I realized that I wasn't interested in her reasons anymore. I had moved on, and I wasn't going to allow her to drag me back into that dark place. "Lisa, I appreciate you reaching out, but I need you to understand something," I said firmly. "I've spent a long time rebuilding my life after what happened. I can't allow you to disrupt that process. I'm happy now and I'm choosing to focus on my future." Her expression shifted, shock and hurt etched across her face. "I just wanted a chance to apologize, to make things right," she said, her voice trembling. "Some things can't be fixed," I replied, feeling a sense of resolve. "You made your choices and I've made mine. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I'm done with the past." As I stood up to leave, I felt a rush of emotions: anger, sadness, but ultimately relief. This was the final chapter of my past, and I was ready to close that door once and for all. Walking away from that meeting, I felt lighter than I had in months. I had faced my past and emerged stronger. I was ready to fully embrace my future with Sarah, and for the first time I felt completely free. This was my life, my journey, and I was determined to make it a beautiful one. After my meeting with Lisa, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The finality of that encounter solidified my resolve to keep moving forward. I had faced my past and refused to let it control my present or dictate my future. I was done with the toxicity and drama that had once consumed my life. Instead, I was ready to embrace the love that was blossoming between Sarah and me. In the weeks that followed, I poured my energy into building a stronger connection with Sarah. We went on more adventures together, exploring new places and creating memories. Each moment spent with her felt like a step toward healing, a reminder of how beautiful life could be when you open your heart to love again. One Saturday, we took a road trip to a nearby winery. The sun shone brightly as we drove along. The scenic route, the windows rolled down and music filling the air. I felt a sense of exhilaration and freedom, something I had longed for after my tumultuous past. As we arrived at the winery, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the experiences that had led me to this moment. We toured the vineyard, tasting different wines while sharing laughter and stories. I watched Sarah as she savored each sip, her eyes sparkling with delight. There was something magical about seeing her so happy, and it made my heart swell with affection. As we settled at a picnic table outside, I glanced around at the lush greenery and the breathtaking views, realizing how far I had come. "John," Sarah said, breaking my reverie, "I'm really glad we're doing this together. It feels like we're building something special." Her words struck a chord and I nodded, unable to hide my smile. I feel the same way. It's refreshing to share these moments with someone who truly understands me. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in warm hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of serenity enveloping us. I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers as we watched the sun dip below the horizon. In that moment, I knew I was ready to take a leap of faith. I had faced my past, healed from my wounds, and I was ready to commit to Sarah fully. "Sarah," I began, my heart racing slightly as I spoke, "I want you to know how much you mean to me. I've been through a lot, and finding you has shown me that love can be beautiful again. I want to build a future with you." Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and delight washing over her face. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" I took a deep breath, feeling a wave of emotion rush over me. "Yes, I am. I want to be with you to embrace this love and see where it takes us. I'm ready to commit to us." A radiant smile broke across her face and she squeezed my hand tightly. "John, that means so much to me. I've felt the same way, but I didn't want to rush you. I appreciate your honesty and your willingness to open up." As we sat there, surrounded by the beauty of the moment, I felt a sense of joy and fulfillment that I hadn't experienced in a long time. I was no longer defined by the betrayal of my past. Instead, I was embracing a future filled with love, laughter, and new possibilities. In the following months, our relationship deepened. We began to meet each other's families, introducing Sarah to my close friends and even visiting my mother. It felt natural and effortless, as if we were meant to be in each other's lives. As our bond grew stronger, I finally felt the kind of love that was built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. But life is rarely without its challenges. One evening, I received a text from a mutual friend, letting me know that Lisa was in town and had been asking about me. A wave of anxiety washed over me, but I reminded myself of how far I had come. I had built a life for myself, a life that wasn't dictated by her choices. I shared the news with Sarah, who offered her support. "You have nothing to worry about, John. You've moved on, and so have I. Just remember you're not alone in this." Her words grounded me, and I was grateful to have someone who understood the complexities of my past while encouraging me to stay focused on our future. The next day, I decided to reach out to Lisa, not out of obligation but to set clear boundaries. We met at a small cafe, and as I walked in, I felt a mix of determination and anxiety. Lisa looked different, older and more fragile than I remembered. It was clear that the weight of her choices had taken a toll on her. "John," she said, her voice softening as she recognized me, "I know I hurt you and I'm truly sorry for everything." I took a deep breath, reminding myself of my worth. "Lisa, I appreciate you saying that, but I need you to understand my life has moved on. I'm in a new relationship now, and I want to focus on building a future that makes me happy." Her expression shifted, a mixture of regret and sadness. "I know, it's just hard to accept. I've made many mistakes, and I wish I could take them back. I've learned that dwelling on the past doesn't help anyone." I replied, maintaining my composure. "I hope you find your own path too, but I need to close this chapter to fully move on." The conversation was difficult, but it felt liberating to assert my boundaries. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of closure. I had faced my past with grace, and I was finally ready to embrace my future without the shadows of betrayal looming over me. With Sarah by my side, I felt equipped to tackle whatever life threw at us. We continued to grow together, building a relationship founded on trust, communication, and shared dreams. I learned how to love and be loved again, and every day felt like a testament to my resilience. As I sit here, reflecting on this journey, I realize that healing is not a linear process. It takes time, effort, and courage to confront the past and embrace the future. I learned that true strength lies in vulnerability, and that opening yourself up to love again is one of the most beautiful things you can do. I want to encourage anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation to take heart. You are not defined by your past. You can break free from toxic relationships and discover the beauty that life has to offer. Embrace your emotions, seek support, and remember that you deserve love that lifts you up. Life is a journey, and with each step, I am grateful for the lessons learned, the love found, and the strength gained. Here's to new beginnings and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.